Good afternoon, everybody. What we saw today out of the House has proved what we've been saying all along. There simply isn't enough revenue in the REC forecast for next year to fashion a responsible budget, one that adequately funds our critical priorities. And that was demonstrated by the fact that they said we should just cut our way out of this, but this is what the cuts look like. Under this budget that was advanced off the House floor today, every single partner hospital around the state of Louisiana closes its doors. The long-term care special income level program is gone. Well, what is that program? Well, this is the program that allows individuals who make over $750 a month to be eligible for waivers and to be eligible for institutional care, such as in nursing homes. 46,000 people lost access to care today, 80% of them in nursing homes, if this bill were to become law. In total, $550 million cut from LDH, the Department of Hospitals, and that's right at $2 billion when you add in the federal match. But it doesn't stop there. The TOPS program is $58 million short of where we need to be to honor our pledge to those students who are on TOPS and those high school seniors who have earned that scholarship. What we didn't talk about much today is the fact that when we don't have partner hospitals next year, the $168 million currently in the forecast for next year goes away because the partners who go away aren't going to make those lease payments. And so the very first thing we would have to do if this budget became law is revise the forecast down yet again by $168 million, which would necessitate cuts in excess of the ones that were made today. We also have issues with respect to the Department of Corrections, which has been cut $20 million in this budget. And by the way, that is a violation of the pledge that the legislature made to the people of Louisiana last year around criminal justice reinvestment, that we would reinvest 70% of the savings associated with those reforms into our correction system to make sure that those reforms were successful. It's also true that sheriffs and DAs went backwards today. They lost funding rather than making up ground. Now, we can, I guess, be heartened because some of the House leadership that advocated for this particular budget also said, yes, but there is clearly a need for a special session to raise revenue to address these shortfalls. Well, there is. The reason there's a need for another special session is because they didn't do it in the regular session last year, the fiscal session, which exists for that very purpose, and they didn't do it in February. So yeah, we do need a special session to address the $648 million shortfall that is determined by the REC, by the way, not by me. I've always used the REC numbers as to what the shortfall is in a given time. And by the way, the sooner we get into that special session, the better. There is far too much angst and turbulence going on today because of all of the harm that these cuts threaten upon the people of Louisiana. So the sooner the better for the special session. The Senate cannot fix this budget. The Senate can move the money around a little bit, but you can't fix this budget because it is short too much revenue. So we need to reaffirm the agreement we had at the outset, and that is we need to adjourn this session early. We need to do so that we can conduct a special session that will conclude no later than June 4th, which was the scheduled date of adjournment for the regular session. And we need to use the time between now and the start of that second special session to refine the agreement. We have an agreement in principle about needing a special session, needing to maintain more of the revenue that's falling off the table, Now we need to refine that and come up with a specific plan that we can all embrace so that we can fix the funding and then pass a responsible budget. And I would just remind you, the shortfall currently from the REC forecast from this year to next in state general fund stands at $648 million. If we address that shortfall and that amount, there will still, from this year to next, be a net $400 million cut in the tax burden of the people of Louisiana. We will still cut $120 million in state general fund expenditures next year. And so that plan that I've had on the table all along is a reasonable, balanced approach to fixing this problem, but one that will allow us to adequately fund our critical priorities. And on that score, the budget that you saw today is a complete failure. It is unworthy of the people of Louisiana. We can do better. We will do better. But we have a lot of work to do. And as I stand before you right now, I have no fear that House Bill 1, as it looks today, will be the appropriations bill that guides our operations budget for next year. So the sooner we can fix it, the better. I'm going to continue to work every day, as will every member of my administration, with the legislature, both in the House and the Senate, to make sure that we do this, because we have too much momentum in Louisiana today to squander it with the foolishness that we've seen with respect to this particular budget. So with that, I am happy to take questions. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, in terms of what you would like to see happen, would you pass a shell of a budget that they can put money into, or are you asking the Senate just not to pass an HB1 and all of it until they get into a special session?
Well, is going to have to decide for itself what it's going to do. I cannot imagine that the Senate is going to relish the idea of passing that particular budget. I think it's also a problem when you have contingent appropriations, so that you appropriate above the line those things that you have forecasted revenue for. You place below the line other things that you cannot fund, because if you vote for that budget, you are voting for a cut for everything below the line, and the net result is the same thing we saw today. I think the far better approach, the sounder approach, the more honest approach, is to go into a special session where we fix the revenue and fashion a budget at the same time. That's what I think we should do, and you know, we're going to be working our way through this. But at the end of the day, we are going to find a way to make sure that we fashion a responsible budget. Today didn't do it. Yes, ma'am.
So along the lines of Melinda's question, the medical school leaders came before the Senate earlier this week and said, asked them not to pass the budget at all because they are afraid it will send the wrong message to their students and faculty. I guess my question is, if a budget came to you, would you consider vetoing it?
Well, first of all, I guess it would send the wrong message to students and faculty, because the message is your school is not funded. It won't operate next year. And obviously, the better course of action would have been for the legislature to pay heed to what they were told by Dr. Oye and Dr. Ghali, because it was factual. Now, I cannot imagine any circumstances whereby anything that approximates the budget that came off the House floor today will become law on and guide our operations for the fiscal year that starts July 1st. Yes, sir.
But then where do you want this to sit? I mean, if you just want it to lay over in Senate Finance, or how should this process play out? And do you have any update on a date for it?
No, with respect to the second part of that question, the dates that we have discussed, the Speaker, the President, and I have all discussed May 14th. Most recently, the Speaker indicated to me he thought May 18th might be the better date. We will be trying to get with him soon to reaffirm the commitment, A, to adjourn early, for the special session, and then pick the date so that we have more structure as we work our way towards a successful conclusion of this session. And I am not going to stand here today and tell the Senate exactly what it should and shouldn't do with this bill. But I don't need to tell the senators how inadequate this bill is. They know it. A clear majority of them have already told me that. They know that it's outside of their ability to fix and put it in a posture that is worthy of the people of Louisiana. So we're going to have to work our way through it, and I remain optimistic we're going to do that. I guess the best part that came today was the vast majority of people who voted for this bill have said, either publicly or privately, that they know we need a special session, that they know that this doesn't adequately finance critical priorities, specifically around, or I guess most especially, around the health care items. Yes, sir.
The last time we discussed the special session, you spoke with the House leadership and Senate leadership about getting on the same page. That didn't work out. So do you plan to do the same thing?
Oh, I'm always going to be talking to them to see what we can agree to in advance and to try to make sure that we can bring together the numbers of legislators around a common approach. At the end of the day, you can't pass anything if you can't get the votes. You're not going to get the votes for anything that isn't a compromise, and you cannot compromise if you don't talk. And you can't just talk, you actually have to listen. But there is no other approach. It did not work in the first special session because the deal that was put on the table by the Speaker, he backed away from it on the very first day of the special session. And we struggled from that point forward to try to put it back together, but hopefully that will not happen again. It should not happen again, especially if we can convene meetings, working groups, and actually work our way through this. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, today during the debate on the budget, there was a bit of a kind of back and forth on questions about what you actually support in a special session, whether it's a half a penny or a quarter penny extension of sales tax. I guess, do you right now feel like you know what you want from a special session?
Yes.
Can you?
Look, I put forward a plan last year that would guide our efforts in a session in order to raise revenue. I met with the Speaker, and on February the 5th of this year, he gave me his plan. From that, we had a framework, and I could agree to those items, and it obviously has something to do with maintaining some part of the fifth penny, cleaning the pennies that we keep to the same level of uniformity, making sure that the haircuts to tax credits and rebates and deductions are extended, and other items such as the double deduction elimination bill is what I want to call it, where we should not be able to deduct this year from our state taxes what we paid in state taxes last year. That is an absurd consequence of having 100% excess deductions from the federal return. So there's a clear set of options before us, and what we said all along remains true. The options don't change. The same things we could have done in the fiscal session in 2017, the same things we could have done and should have done in the special session earlier this year, those are the options that are before us. And we need to get to $648 million by maintaining that amount of money. And remember, there's $1.4 billion expiring.
And I guess to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, there was also a lot of kind of mentioning of the bill during the special session. Several Democrats did not agree to the sales tax bill and voted against it. I guess, do you want to respond to that criticism?
Yeah, well, first of all, the short-term memory problems down there with some of those individuals. Was it the sales tax bill that they objected to, or was it the linkage between that bill and other things that they did not support, and that they told House leadership, and they told the author of the bill, we want to be in a position to vote for this, but we cannot, because you're linking it to something we do not support. And if we vote for this instrument, we're expressing support for something that we strongly object to. By the way, bills that had already cleared the House and gone to the Senate were under no danger of being defeated over there. And so it wasn't the instrument itself, and the members of the House who said that today know better. Yes, ma'am.
I guess I'm still a little unclear. When I talked to Richard earlier in the week, he said if a bill that looked like the House version of HB1 reached your desk, he would be.
You know, there's nothing to be unclear about. A bill that looks like that reaches my desk will not become law. That will not guide the operational budget for the state of Louisiana next year. It is unworthy of the people of Louisiana. And I guess I need to go over this again. We won't have any medical schools in Louisiana if that's going to be the operating budget that we have for next fiscal year. We won't have any partner hospitals. We're going to have 46,000 people who won't be able to take advantage of waiver services or nursing homes. We cut 20% from TOPS, which is $58 million short. We would lose $168 million in lease payments that hasn't even been factored into the discussion yet, because it's just built into the forecast for next year. DOC would lose $20 million and not be able to deliver upon its promise to deliver the services and the programs necessary to ensure we are successful on our criminal justice reform. Sheriffs and DAs go backwards. We didn't pass a budget today at all for the judiciary, which is not necessarily part and parcel to House Bill 1, but it's all related, because at the end of the day, money is fungible. You have so much state general fund revenue, and you've got to fund state government. And so I have no fear that House Bill 1, looking like it did today, will be in effect come July 1st of 2018. Yes, ma'am.
So, my understanding is that those 46,000 people, either they or their family members are going to be getting notices saying that their Medicaid will be terminated. Is there, and this is like a practical question, is there something you guys are doing to maybe not cause, I mean, that would cause a lot of panic for me if I were getting that notice.
You know what we did? We called a special session in February. That's what we did. No, I'm not fussing with you, but that's what we did. The law is the law. I expect people to follow the law. If these institutions have to send notices out, whether it's to residents or their families, or whether it's to their employees who they have to give 60 days notice that they may not be able to maintain them, they have to send those out. I expect them to follow the law. But what I did to avoid that from happening was call a special session, ask them to raise the revenue when we should have raised it. They didn't do it. Now they passed this horrible budget, and they parade to the floor talking about the need for a special session to raise revenue.
I hear you. I understand that it's not necessarily the situation that you all want to be in, and there's a legal requirement, but on a practical level.
Okay, but you just answered your question. There is a legal requirement. I expect people to follow the law.
I guess I was wondering if anyone, be it a nursing home owner or a lawmaker or someone is going to be able to answer those people what they should say if someone calls and says, my mother is about to be kicked out of the nursing home.
You know, I'd give them the number to the legislators who didn't vote for revenue in the special session. I don't know how to answer your question other than I expect people to follow the law. This is a consequence of inaction. This is a consequence of delayed action. This is a consequence of irresponsible legislators. We need to move past it. This is the prime example of the pain that I was talking about that should have been avoided.
One last question.
Yes, ma'am.
So is there anything that the Senate could do in this February session that would avoid the budget?
Well, how can the Senate fix this? First of all, revenue has to originate in the House. And so they don't have anything but the REC forecast to work with. All of the money in the REC forecast is already incorporated into the budget. There is no way to move that money around and make this budget one that is worthy of the people of Louisiana, that adequately funds our critical priorities. And so, no, the Senate cannot fix this. And maybe that was some false sense of security that some House members have, because over the years, they've passed a lot of imperfect legislation, especially budgets, that went to the Senate, and those bills were improved, and they come back to the House, and we can all say we did a reasonably good job. That's not possible this time. And so it's just the unfortunate reality of where we are today, which is why I will finish where I started. We need a special section to maintain more of the revenue that's fallen off the table, to address the REC determined shortfall of $648 million. And the sooner, the better. And between now and then, I'm going to work hard every single day to make sure that we are successful. And the types of cuts that I just described to you do not happen in the state of Louisiana. The state is better than this. They deserve better than this. Thank you.